Hi everyone, it's Grant Abbott speaking, and we've got Michael's already switched the slides over from our onto our credit for our foundation members. What we're looking at, this is a simple training session for you, but we have got quite a bit of an adventure to go through. So we'll be looking at setting up a self-managed super fund with a company or an individual. We're going to be looking at discretionary trusts, again, the same sort of thing. We're going to be looking at a deed upgrades as well, so how to do a simple SMSF deed upgrade. We're going to look at the leading member fund, and I'll explain a bit further about that when we go through. And also, finally, we'll look at account-based pension and what to do there. So we've got it now. We're going to go through, but please feel free to ask any questions as we go along. This is being recorded, so you don't need to sit down and take notes, because you'll always be able to go back to this little session and follow it up from there. So any questions, please feel free. Michael, how are you?
Good, thanks, Grant. How are you?
I know, unfortunately, the teams haven't got the best person to show it, but I think we'll be okay one way or another. If you just want to jump into LightYear for us, Michael.
I'll just jump into the site. You'll notice that I'm using Google Chrome. I'll just make a point of that Google Chrome is the best engine because it's self-updating web engine, and it tends to have a lot more functionality in relation to websites. So try to use Google Chrome as much as you can.
For that, if you have a look at it, just while we're on that page, there's two ways of getting to the documents. You can see we're on the home page, and then you've got product categories. So if you just go into product categories, I think if we scroll down the screen, actually, it takes us down. You can see there's an RPA strategy pack, and an RPA strategy pack just generally means where you've got maybe 2 or 3 or 4 documents packaged together. So, for example, if you're looking to upgrade a ordinary SMSF with a company, so we're upgrading the company constitution to a leading member constitution and also a leading member SMSF, then you'd go down the RPA strategy pack. But we've got business and commercial agreements, we've got SMSF income streams, we're going to be looking at the account-based pension in there. We've got companies there, so you can do upgrades of constitutions to special purpose or leading member companies. We won't spend a huge amount of time on companies in this session, for a couple of reasons, because if we go in and build a company, which we can do, but then it goes off to ASIC, and it means we actually end up with a company. But Michael will talk through that a little bit later on. We've got estate planning down there. We've also got SMSF borrowing, and then down a little bit further, Michael, if we go from there. We've then got SMSF establish, maintain and upgrade, and also trust. So we're going to be looking through the discretionary trusts there, and also SMSF establish, maintain and upgrade. So if you just want to log in, Michael, you can see that you've got a login session up there.
Yeah, just before I log in, as Grant was saying, there's the product categories and the search engine bar. So there's 2 different ways to find documents. I tend to like the product categories. Ash likes...
Yeah, I prefer the search personally.
Yeah, and so you can use a topic or strategy, and it'll come up with the various documents that are under that. So even if I've used, wanted to set up a company, it will come up and it can take me straight to the actual company. So it's good to actually spend a bit of time in these categories and have a look at what documents we've got available. We're continually updating those and adding new documents, and we're continually using a monthly review schedule in which we will be reviewing and ensuring that those documents remain fresh, live, compliant, and what I believe are the best in the marketplace. So I'll jump
on that. We've got our legal firm, TGA Legal, which has signed off on all of the documents. So that's pretty important. So we've developed all the documents. They're all fresh and clean. So we're all ready to go, and we have got quite a long list of documents still to go up. So it's our intent to be the most significant document provider in Australia in terms of documents for use by accountants and also financial planners, as opposed to, for example, someone like Reuters Thompson, who provides documents mainly for legal firms. Now, mind you, the engine that we're going to be looking at today effectively is an engine that is being used by all the major legal firms around the world, and effectively it does more than 10 million documents an hour. So it's very robust and certain. So there's not that many bugs in it. Well, actually, we haven't come across any bugs in it. The main thing about that is it's virtually the same. It's like you guys having a legal office in your firm, so that you can really start to utilise all these legal documents. But they're also tax and superannuation. We're also going down the stage of people sharing their documents with us. For example, we've got WSA accountants who've done, Brian Wibley and his team have done some great SOAs for use by limited licence accountants and also financial planners. So if you're self-licensed or you're limited licence, those SOAs will be available on our platform coming up very shortly. But if you want to log in there, Michael.
Will do. I'll just use my login. Now, if you don't have a login, you'll need to register. So you can register either via the site or contacting Daniel. You can also book using the site a demo if no one's completed that as well by this button. I'll log in. And the first thing that comes up as soon as I log in is if I've completed documents before is My Vault. And that is a list of clients or matters that I've been working on. As you can see there, I've got the Jeffries group. So if I click on that, that'll have a number of documents I've been working on. So I can actually, if I use there's a couple of buttons here, I can use the expand button, which will show here, and I can actually download that document again. I could delete that document if I wish, but I wouldn't suggest to. And I can also use this little box with the pen to move it to another folder. Now, there's also another button that looks like a rocket that allows you to, within 24 hours of purchasing the document, to relaunch that interview process in case you want to make changes and complete the document, download again. That is for all documents other than companies, because once you purchase a company, it gets sent off to ASIC, as Grant mentioned before, and the ASIC registration fees have to be paid, and so no changes can be made from that point forward. So if I just go back, you can see I was actually helping one of our ILS members this morning on some documents, and if I expand their folder, it will have the little rocket still available, so I could still launch that interview process if I wish to and make changes. So just jumping in across to the product categories, as Grant said before, we'll work through...
the first one is just an SMSF establishment with individuals. So if we
jump in, yep, and go SMSF establishment with individual trustee, you can see that down below, if you want to look in and find a little bit of information about the product, whether we recommend it be digitally signed or not, general information, benefits of it, and frequently asked questions are all located in here. You can also go to our support centre, and there's further information on documents, strategies, Q&A, and the ability to send a chat, which you can do from the site as well here, which will come into our team to respond to.
So this video will be available up on the support centre again for continuous training, so that if anyone needs to, you can just jump in from there.
Correct. So I'll go in and buy the product. So I'll put it under my folder, so we can create a folder, but I've got a folder there, and it'll come through and it'll say payment. So if you have credit available in your account, then you can accept and pay by credit, or you can utilise a credit card. A number of people would have got emails from me in the past week in relation to the foundation membership offer that in terms of credit, because it would have, because all the credit expires on the calendar month end. And we've gone out and offered to extend that till the 30th of June if people respond back to my email. So a number of people have got back. So if you have got that email and you've still got credit to use, come back to me and we'll extend that out to 30 June.
And I think it's also important, we've got a lot of security around it, but all of our servers are based in Australia. So we haven't gone Amazon Web Services, it's all basically in Australia. And what Michael's done, you can actually see we've gone from, and I think this is really important, and I worked yesterday with Kelly from WSA Accountants, and she was just ripping through these trustee upgrades and everything like nobody's business. And certainly for those a lot better at typing, even Michael's a lot better for us. We'll just stop there to let me have a chat.
Yep.
What we're doing there is you can see the glossy front, or the green and white front for LightYear Docs is consistent throughout the whole site. However, what happens is now we're in what we call the Hot Docs iframe. If you want to know more a bit about Hot Docs, just go to hotdocs.com. Again, it's the largest document system in the world, and as I said, does 10 million documents per hour. We're a little bit different because of the need to ensure that everything stays in Australia. We bought a perpetual license from Hot Docs, which is extremely expensive compared to, for example, using the cloud. The problem is if we use the cloud, it would be offshore, and really given privacy and all other issues, we didn't want to go through that. So Michael's just gone through and picked the SMSF establishment for individual trustees. At any point in time, we've also got to be careful, I'll just give you a bit of a heads up, is that as we go down to the end page, when we go to the end page, we don't want to be wasting too much time in the end page to actually finalising everything. Because it's a legal system, it times out within, what's the space, probably about 15 or 20 seconds, would that be, Michael?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
And the reason they do that is that if you leave it open, there's a possibility someone can come and change all the material. So you just got to be, at the end page, you've got to be quick. But anyway, we've gone through, if you just want to take everyone through where you've gone.
Yes, and and just adding to what Grant said, what you can do is you can press save your answers. If you save your answers, it will go into a My in Progress documents. So if you want it to come back to that at any time, you can press save and it'll save where you're at, but it'll be under My Vault further down, say My in Progress documents, and just select it again and continue the interview. So what I've done, so the first stage is just asking general questions. I'm just putting in my actual personal superannuation fund answers to assist with the process. So other than the fact that my deed was commenced quite a while ago. So I'm stating that the deed will start on this day and picking the state of legislation. And it's just simply a matter of going next. Because we've selected SMSF establishment for individual trustees, it comes up saying individual. So I go about entering the details of each individual. As Grant said, I'll just put a different address. Lenders.
You need to know where you live. And it's important, you can see there that if you are doing individual trustees in SMSF, you need more than one. They don't necessarily need to be members, but we simply add the trustee there. So Michael's he'll put in 2. And you see a little, I'll show you a little bit later on, there's a nice little thing to make things a lot easier. Okay, so you can see down the bottom, there's also a red bar there. So there's also a red bar. So these are the initial members. Now, remember I said you could have two trustees. If you only have one member and you've got individual trustees, you need to have 2 trustees. So those trustees don't necessarily need to be members. So that's why we don't pick it up. We actually put in our initial member full name.
And I can actually use the select button here to bring through the address if I wanted to use the address of one of those trustees to save time. And I'll put myself as the member. And next it comes up asking question in relation to the member meeting and the voting, and whether we'll have a vote for vote each, or it'll be based on a proportion based on our account balances.
So you need to, this is important, this is one of there's an option. So generally people do proportional, or they can do chairman casting. So as a firm, if you're on the admin side and doing this out, you need to make sure that the advisor or the partner involved has asked the client whether they want a vote each, with chairman casting vote or proportional votes based on their account balance.
So we'll check to select this one and next, and it comes up with just a quick check for you to see who the signers are going to be in relation to the deed. So it's got the 2 individual trustees and the member, and then it's just simply a matter of me pressing finish.
And so what that does is that actually starts to generate a PDF for us, which we go ahead. So that's how easy it is to set up an SMSF. Now, if you're doing a company, then obviously just want to go through the company process, Michael, while you're opening that.
Yeah, so I'll just press download. So if we were doing a company, obviously we go in the product categories and go company, and we go through the same process of answering all the questions in relation to the directors, the shareholders, the type of share structure they'll have, whether it's ordinary or we've got update classes of shares available. For the super funds, we've only got one class, which is a non-dividend class of share, and then you allocate those shares across the members. And then as soon as you press finish, the document shoots off to ASIC via an API handshake, and within 5 to 10 minutes, we should have an ACN back, which allows the document to be completed and the constitution issued.
So we just want to have a look at the SMSF establishment. So if you just do that. So this is a PDF. So we've got the SMSF Deed, establishing money for nothing super fund. So a very old Dire Straits song. For some of you young guys, you probably know what that is. We've got all the relevant disclaimers. We've got a product disclosure statement because this is initial establishment. And we tend to do that more often than not is to give an information memorandum or product disclosure statement for the client, which is required under the Corporations Act. So if we just then go down to the actual deed itself.
Here we go.
This is show. So if we go up, then we can see money for nothing. We've got the trustee, and you can see Roger Rabbit and Michael are both individual trustees. And we've got the initial fund members. Now we've only got Michael. Remember I said you could have 2 trustees. So Michael's put in Roger Rabbit as the additional trustee, but Roger is not an initial member of the fund. And then we go down, we've got the trustee establishes the fund. We've got a signing. Now, just a couple of things. We are building digital signatures, particularly for companies, which is allowed under the Corporations Act. But whenever you're doing a trustee, and particularly where you're doing individuals, you need to have the witness actually signed. So it actually needs to be signed in front of a witness. So if someone is, for example, Michael would need to sign in front of a witness. It doesn't really work if you've got digital. You can imagine he might be on an iPhone. I'm here, I can't witness it. I'd have to try and get someone else. So it's preferred to print these out and also get them signed. Now, one of the other things from that is we will be we will have available TGA legal or LightYear Docs folders at a later stage if you want to parcel them up into a permanent file if you're an accountant. We just go down further, and then you can start to see all then the rest of it is essentially just all the relevant deed and all the governing rules. So if we go down that's our establishment pack. You can go right down to the end and have a look. There's plenty of stuff there to keep your firm and partners all quite happy. So that's all there. One of the different things is for us with have a look at membership. People are appointed as members. There's no application forms for that, particularly if you've got initial members. So that essentially is our ordinary SMSF deed. Michael, if you just want to go through and do a leading member.
I will.
Now, a leading member, actually, while you're there, do you want to just jump into your vault and show them how you could edit that?
I will. And just something to add on the vault is if you switch over to our corporate compliance partner, BGL 360, you will have an additional folder here called My Companies. And that will, when you set up a company or an SMSF special purpose company, those companies will be sitting there and available to push via an API across to CAS 360. So now you can see there's my progress documents as well. So I'd be able to go back into any of those. So if I go into my vault here, into the Jeffries group, you'll see here now there's the SMSF establishment with individual trustee. And that was, it's this one here, that I set up on the 29th of May at 12:46. And I have the ability to relaunch the interview should I wish for 24 hours. So if the client, if we suddenly went, the client doesn't want to call it money for nothing anymore, they want to call it money never sleeps, super fund, then we can change it in there and relaunch. And
importantly on that one, even if you're beyond the 24 hours, because sometimes, particularly in the regional areas, it takes a while for people to get in or people overseas, feel free to simply come back. The only exception, of course, is companies where Michael said if you've already put in directors as lodged with ASIC, then we need to do a 484 on that, or you'll need to do a 484 to notify ASIC of a change. But essentially, from our perspective, is if you want to come in and make a change a little bit later on, just please feel free to do so. Essentially what we'll do is we can go and make that manual adjustment. So for that, you just need to call us or send us an email to support@ilovesmsf.com.
And that's one of the fortunate things that we've got in relation to the Hot Docs iframe that Grant mentioned before, is that it's the ability for us to be able to do that, and also the ability for us to be quite nimble in relation to creating and releasing new documents. We can release 4 to 5 documents, if not more, per week if we needed to. It's all to do with that Hot Docs iframe.
So just moving on to our leading member. So again, we'll go individual trustees.
So I can use the search engine this time, and I'll go leading member.
Now, the leading member is essentially a special sort of deed. We've got both leading member, got deed of variations individual, which Michael will go through if you just want to build it, because it's really much the same. If we can just stop at the leading member when you get there, Michael.
Yeah.
Essentially, you can see here we're building it through. It's gone all through the same process as we've gone before. So really, once you've done a few of these, it works through. Now, the leading member is a little bit different because it's used in order to protect wealth for the bloodline of a family. We've got our ordinary SMSF deed. Now, what Michael's doing is building one for his family. So he's going to enter into the same data, if you can do that, Michael, and just go through, and I'll stop. So it's going to be exactly the same as he did before. We're going individual trustees. Generally prefer to have a leading member corporate trustee. But as I said, we don't want to go down that track and waste too much of your time. So it's all the same process. You can see he's going to go through. Now, what happens is once we get to a leading member, they obviously have to be a member of the fund, but they're the ones who actually control the fund. So they can appoint and remove the trustee of the fund. They can also be in a position of appointing and removing members. Under this deed, again, you don't make an application. The leading member taps you on the shoulder, and effectively you are immediately appointed, provided you consent to the rules, etc. of the deed. You're immediately appointed. So when we go through, we're now putting the leading member. So for this one, we've got Michael. Now, importantly for that one is if Michael effectively becomes incapacitated, mentally incapacitated, physically, or dies, then in that instance, essentially what will happen, he needs to have someone to follow him in. You can see how he's just used the select to make things easier. We've got the witness there. We then go down, and now if he clicks yes, so it can be his spouse, or effectively it could be his child. So really you can go down, it could go from Michael to his spouse, or then it can go down to his child. So that's a discussion that your partner or your advisor will have with the client. But we are developing a Q&A session or a Q&A sheet there for the client, and they'll be able to do that for you.
So select no this time.
So you just make sure you hit no. Wherever you see yes or no, you always have to hit no, otherwise it doesn't come up properly in the document.
So I've just selected my son there as a second leading member.
So he's got his son. So if something happens to Michael, instantly his son takes over, which is his bloodline. So that's another one. Then we actually go in. We've chosen leading members, so now we go in and obviously we're going to find that Michael's going to be in there, and his son will also be in there as well. Add a member. Now he can put in up to 4 members, obviously, but that will be changed. We've got under the deed, you can put in up to 6 members in the deed once the government makes changes to the legislation, which is will be done in the next probably 2 or 3 months. So you've got quite a full ticket there. So if we just press next and we get it going. So press finish, and again, remember, once we get there, have a quick look over, press finish really quickly because we don't want it to time out. So again, now you've got all the documents.
Simple matter of just pressing download again. And when they've got an RPA strategy, it'll have that's when you can utilise the download all documents. It'll have all the documents listed.
So while we're there, so you got the PDS, just scroll right down. And you'll see when you get to the deed itself, I think there we go. So we've got the trustee, we've got the leading member, Michael, we've got the initial members, Michael and his son. You can see down there at 3, point 3, the rest tells the leading member is hereby appointed as the leading member of the fund, blah, blah, blah. But then you've got the second leading member coming in at Jaden. So what will happen is something happens to Michael, immediately Jaden comes in. And then we go down the track again, we get to the execution page. Again, because they're individual trustees, remember, we're going to want them to be witnesses while we've done that. And then we go right down to the end, which covers all of that stuff. So just, there we go. So there's our initial member pages, signing, leading member, and also our trustee. So there's quite a bit of signing to do. Print them out, get them there for the client and go through that signing process. While we're here, do you just want to do a quick SMSF trust deed update?
I will do.
Upgrade. So just a simple one, and then we'll go to the RPA. Again, this will be available online. So we want to do
I did one of these for our members. I sent them this morning. So
you're going to be whiz at it. So what we're here is you will have a deed from a client, and what we're doing is updating them to a LightYear Docs deed. Remember, it's going to be either what happens in an upgrade process, it throws out all the old rules and puts in the new rules. So it's a holus bolus, it does it really quickly. Michael will just cover this very quickly, and I'll get him to talk through the variation stuff. But you've got a choice of either going leading member or our straight SMSF deeds.
So the first part, obviously, the name of the fund. Then we get to the actual governing rules relating to when it will be changed. So I'll put in today's date, and then you get to when the fund was originally set up. So this is where we need to grab the original trust deed of the super fund and find the date of setup. And
I find, so just on that one, if you go to the last deed that was set up, generally if it's done properly, it will have when the fund was set up, it'll have any variations, and then obviously that last variation will have to be included as well. So I went through this in quite detail. So I
agree with you, but unfortunately the deed I worked with this morning that didn't have it, so I had to get the original deed, then the several amended.
And again, look, if you've got any particular issue, just please feel free to give us a call or send us a question to support@ilovesmsf.com. So we've got an original one that was set up. Let's go yes.
Yes.
So it's been updated. So I can pick that up from the deed itself, or variation deed. And if you want, you can add another one, but we go down, do a company this time. So as the trustee. So this is where you've got an existing company. So if it's an SMSF, you've got to make sure it's a sole purpose company. You may want to do an upgrade of the company constitution as well to make sure it is sole purpose if it's not. So we can work through this pretty quickly. Put in
number of directors. So
just put in 2. and then click confirm, and then up pops the name. So we just got to fill in the two names. We can tab between to send in an extra name. And generally prefer to, well, I prefer from a legal perspective to tick both of these as a witness.
I agree.
Not a witness, sorry, as a signer. Again, we go through, remember the same thing that we did before, which one you want to do. So try proportional this time, and that will come up into your deed.
And we do the variation. So this is where we've got to go back to the last amended deed or the original deed, if there are only the original deeds in place.
So we looked at some now infinity ones yesterday. So the clause was 42. So we went in and had a look at 42.
And put 42.
Now, if the deed actually says, for example, that, and these are really old deeds, generally it's not going to be the case, but when you go down, you have to look at how the deeds varied. So you look at what you've got there, and then if it says that the founder or the principal or the employer must provide sign-off, then you just got to tick the box yes. And if you just tick the box yes, so we could put in there that they're a founder, principal, or another person. So let's just go through as a founder. Again, it's very unlikely that this is going to happen to you, but just in case you might find a founder, or you know how to do that, or simply contact us and we'll help you through the process. And again, we could have used the select button. So we go through next, and that's it. So that's how easy it is to upgrade a deed. And again, this is a nice little summary for you. You can see, because this is the system is, if you're just going to scroll through and I'll talk, but because the system does 10 million documents an hour, it's a very simple, easy to use system. It's going to save you a lot of time, and also effectively you're going to end up with a consistent, solid product. We still give a PDS. We don't necessarily need to at law, but because there's different rules, etc., we put that in. It's better to give more than less. So we've got a deed of variation. So you can see there the trustee of the fund. We've got the founder. See the founders put up, because we know we've had a review. Ordinarily, if you don't need, it's only the trustee to upgrade, then effectively that won't be in. But you've got there the rule 42.19 that Michael had in there, so on and so forth. We then go down to the signing pages. So we've got a company. So with a company, you don't need to show, you just got the directors, you don't need to have them witness. But when we've got the founder, we've got down below there. If there's any questions, please feel free just to jump on chat line or Q&A and ask questions. Where we've got the founder, if we just go down a bit further, that probably should be out. We might want to just go back to, might make a note of that. Then we've got an individual, so we need to sign it off. So if we do that, now what we'll do is let's go and have a look at something a little bit more sophisticated. If you want to go to the RPA for us, Michael.
Yep.
So what this is I did a lot of this yesterday, and this will be for some of you. What we've got there is where you've got an existing corporate trustee and also a existing SMSF. What we're going to do here is we're doing an upgrade of the existing company constitution, and we're also going to do an upgrade of the SMSF deed to the leading member. So what we do is we go through the same process. Again, if you have a look at it, it's $198, which that's two documents there. Normally that's the price of like one document for most people. All of our documents are only $99. We've been able to keep our costs low because we've spent so much on utilising the Hot Docs framework.
The $99 for a single document.
Yeah, $99 for a single. But remember, we're doing 2-in-1 here. The reason we're doing 2-in-1 is to make it more efficient. Rather than having to do one and another, we've actually got two there. So the first one we're doing is upgrading or updating the company constitution to a leading member constitution. Again, everything's signed off by TJ Legal, and it comes out as LightYear Docs. So we've got our system there. We've got to go through. you're going to find all of this details anyway from, if you have a look at it, it should be available from the last SMSF deed. If you work on that, it's usually you got most of the details there. So what date do we want to do it? Now, Michael, actually just tick on the little calendar box there. See it right next to you?
Yep.
So that's a good way just to pick up today's date and make it quicker. But if you got remember we did variations, will come up a little bit later on. That takes way too long to do that.
Actually, the deed upgrade I did this morning, we did a change of trustee from individual trustees to corporate trustee before we actually did the deed upgrade. So similar sort of process.
Okay. So because it's now, what we have to do here is, in order to change the constitution, unlike the deed where we've got trustees, all that needs to happen is all the shareholders, which are known as members under the Corporations Act, they all have to agree to the constitution change. So we need to find out who the shareholders are. They'll generally be directors or members of the other company. So Michael's the only shareholder, which is good. So we've done, that is now all you need to do for changing the company constitution.
Correct.
So that's pretty good. Now he's going into changing. Remember we had a look at the change of the variation to the deed. We're now looking at doing that. That's to upgrade it to a leading member deed. So it's the same process we did before. He's going to do it on the same date. Now remember we went through that stuff before. He's just going to go through and choose the date. Again, if you're lucky enough to have it from the last variation, you can just pick it up from there. And he's putting in another date. I have seen up to 16 deeds and variations.
Really?
Yeah, so, well, the deed, believe it or not, was from 1983.
Wow.
So it was a very old deed, which is a bit scary because, believe it or not, it wasn't even the super fund in the first place. It was a employee remuneration fund.
Yeah, well, one of the deeds from this morning looked like it'd been done on a typewriter, the original deed.
I like those ones, like an old ACES deed.
Right.
So what he's doing is, remember we went through that process, the leading member? Because we're upgrading it, we're just going through the same process again. He's selected, get the second one in. So again, once you've got all this information from your client.
You can actually select the address there.
Yeah, so it makes it really quickly. So we go down. A few of the documents are coming up. Again, 42.19 if you want to do that. Don't need, just go no there. Remember, if you see a yes or no, you must tick the no, otherwise it doesn't complete the system. We finish and that's it. So that's 2 documents done. You just want to take everyone through those ones. So that's a leading member constitution upgrade and also a leading member SMSF. So we're really ripping through these. Some of the ones we've got coming up is a bank LRBA or related party loan.
Yeah, it's got two separate documents.
So we've got there 2 documents which will be in a line. So that's the constitution and also the deed. Strategy text and guidelines, because it's for a leading member. Then effectively you can use that if you are a financial advisor. This is upgrading. You don't need to give an SOA, but it doesn't hurt to just give a bit of indication of strategy text. So what we've got there is a constitution upgrade to SMSF special purpose. So we go down the track. We have a shareholders meeting, or what they call a members meeting. As you can see there, as members to change the constitution, special resolution which is required under the Corps Act. You can see section 136 there. But then we go down and obviously we need the members to sign, or the shareholders to sign. So Michael was the only one, so he signs there and essentially it's off and running. Now, when it's a company, we don't need to have a witness because it's under the it's under the Corporations Act. Now, this is all our leading member constitution, which is quite different from a typical, there's 3 sorts of companies you can have. You can have an ordinary company, you can have a special purpose SMSF company, which requires you can only have non-dividend paying shares. Well, this one is a leading member, which in the event of bankruptcy or whatever, it all just automatically goes to the next leading member. So again, If Michael goes bankrupt, then Jaden comes in. And you can see just what we've got now is we've gone now from the Constitution automatically into the next document, which is the variation of the SMSF. We've gone through the variation, and we're going through that now. So through, remember, the PDS.
And the deed of variation.
You go through the same deed of variation. We've got all the signing pages, so on and so forth. Leading member, then we go through the deed. So that's 2 documents. Just to show you, what we're going to do now is if you just want to go to a discretionary trust with individual trustees.
Just really shows you the power behind the RPA. We'll be building out further strategy-based packs that have up to 10 documents and maybe even more in the future, but that within the matter of minutes that you'll be able to produce those for your clients.
And the importance about this is that generally one document leads to another. We are in the process of building one now for a business property transfer, such as a farm or an office or accountant's premises being transferred from a family trust or an individual company into an SMSF, and it can be by way of a limited recourse borrowing arrangement, can then go into the super fund. Super fund can get upgraded, all the transfer documents. So you can end up with about 14 or 15 documents, which might sound pretty insurmountable, but the thing is it's all done in a line. So one set of information feeds into the next, feeds into the next, feeds into the next, and it's then very easy just to build out of that. One we've done has got something like about 250 pages of documentation, but honestly, I've seen Ash do that in probably 4.5 minutes flat. So for those of you out there, really good quick typers, which I know many of you are, you're probably able to do it in about 3 or 4 minutes. So we've got 2 different ones. We've got the standard discretionary trust, which most people will have. You can see down below, Michael's saying you can have a change of trustee for discretionary trust, which you did this morning, or the leading member discretionary trust, which simply looks at appointors and succession appointors. Personally, I prefer the leading member, but again, let's just go through the standard discretionary trust. So for that, we go back to our folder. You could probably take it from there, Michael, explain all of that.
Go through that and we go through the payment process. So I'm using my credit again and wait for the interview process to pop up. An important thing just to note on what Grant was saying before too, in relation to our document releases, our process is to hold a webinar midweek when we have new documents to come out or a new RPA strategy pack, and Grant or one of the team will deliver that document and the strategy behind it, and then within 24 to 48 hours after that webinar we'll release the documents. So that's a big point of difference in relation to LightYear Docs and the rest of the market. We have the strategy and the tech behind the documents, and we provide the support and service in relation to that and back it up through the whole process.
So we just go through the Smith Family Trust, or Smith Discretionary Trust. Again, a good solid backbone in terms of self-managed super funds. There's twice as many family trusts in Australia. So again, we just choose today's date. Quite often I prefer to use South Australia because it's there's no rule against perpetuities. If it's finally wound up in 80 years, if you're using another state, if it's South Australia, don't worry, but you can nominate a charity if the fund is ever wound up. You must fill this in. If you don't, then just put non-NA, which is not applicable. Or you use the RSPCA or whatever. So good question, Michael. RPA is effectively, it's a new thing that's, well, I shouldn't say it's new, it's been around for a while. RPA means robotic processing automation. So for example, when I'm just doing one document, you just do the document, you get in and out. But it's the same as when you're in your office, you're doing an SOA, you get in and get out. But when we start to build maybe 2 or 3 processes, for example, if we're setting up, as Michael said, we set up a company and then we set up a leading member SMSF, we've got to interact with ASIC. So we've got about 3 or 4 processes. Or, for example, the one that I talked about before, the transfer of business real property in, a lease back, et cetera, could have like 10 to 15 documents. Now, to try and build those all separately and get them all with the right data, getting, without typos can be very difficult. But if we can put it in one interview form such as this, and then the system itself goes and completes all of those documents or integrations with other ones, then what we've done is we've got a automation of that process. And because it's done through software, they call it robotic processing automation. If you had a look at it, it's quite funny. At Davos, which is all the elites get together in Switzerland, and they'll talk about the future of the world and all of that sort of stuff. So it goes on each and every year. The big thing this year was robotic processing automation, and effectively what they're seeking to do through this is lower their actual costs in terms of staff. So you might have a whole lot of processes. Normally, if it can be done really quickly, that saves a lot. So what we're doing is we're utilising RPA, robotic processing automation, to take what ordinary legal firm would do and enable you to do it really quickly, and to do something that is quite strong and virtually punching above your weight, if that makes sense. It's certainly worthwhile having a look at it. There's one guy, I think one of the blokes of the Davos Elite, he's got 10,000 employees. He said, my goal is to get it to one, just me, because everything else will be robotised or RPA'd.
And we're certainly looking outside the box in relation to that in terms of documents and workflow processes and what we can do and utilise the engine for going forward. But we're only just scratching the surface at the moment.
Yeah, I had one person from last year from Dubai who had 450 accountants he was working through, or admin and process admin people. He was looking for us to go in and do an analysis to see how we could sharpen the time. Well, not sharpen the time, but make it all. Because if you make it a process and it's automated, then it means it's always going to be done the same, which means compliance is always going to be perfect and nothing can be really mucked up. So we've just gone through thank you for that question, Michael, and I'm sure we'll be having a chat very shortly in our little teleconference, and looking forward to that. What we've got to do is, if we have a discretionary trust, we need to have a set law. Now, the set law can't be a beneficiary, it can't be a trustee or appointor. So we find a set law. Generally, quite often accountants, if they're setting them up, or planners, will put their own name in there as a set law. You can put in there anything between $10 to $100. The reason you do that, in order to set up a trust, you must have property put into that specific trust.
And it's important that whatever that settlement sum is, I know a lot of people used to staple that to the trust deed and stuff, but that is the first deposit into the bank account once established, because that's, as Grant said, the first property or asset of that trust.
So then we go from the set law to the trustee. And again, we've got individuals, or we can have a company here. So let's just go through. This is assuming that we've already got a company. Now, generally when we do have a discretionary trust, we may have already set up a company through LightYear Docs. We've got a company hanging around already. So we can use that, and Michael's just filling in that. So the three key components are the set law, who needs to put the money in, but they can't really take any role in the trust again. So quite often the accountant or the planner will do that. Trustee is really important because they control it. And the next one that we're going to be going to is the appointor. Now, the appointor is really a big issue in a trust, because the appointor is much the same. This is where I got the idea of the leading member. The appointor is the person who can appoint and remove the trustee of the fund. So they're fairly important. So if we go through, much the same, if you have a look at the process, again, this is something that is virtually the same as choosing select. But can you see there, again, we can have succession. So it's much the same as the leading member. But we've just simply taken a lot of this mechanism, this process, and put it over to a self-managed superannuation fund. So we've got the appointor. Now we have to put down the beneficiaries. And so we've got a choice whether they're individuals, companies, or we're going to have incorporated associations such as a charity.
We'll just go individual beneficiaries on this occasion.
Now, mind you, if we just go individuals, if you're going to use a bucket company, or if the advisor or the partner says we want to put in a company there as a beneficiary, then you simply just need to tick that box. Now, when it comes down to beneficiaries, you still can distribute to spouses, daughters, granddaughters, anyone in their bloodline as well. But essentially what we've got there is we've just got a pretty simple sort of system there. So we've got one, we're putting in the son again. And select. And so we've got our beneficiaries. That didn't pick it up.
No, I pressed the wrong one. But, user error.
Okay, and then we assign us, and that's it. So we've done our corporate trustee with a discretionary trust. So it's not a leading member trust, it's a discretionary trust. So that'll poke up, and then we've got our documents. We download, it's the same sort of process again. And we've got a discretionary trust deed there. This trust deed has been written by the guy. So we've got the settlor, the trustee. And then if we go down and have a look at appointor down further in the appointor, no, if you just go back up,
Okay,
Michael,
yeah, sorry.
I think it's in there it is, appointor, see? The definitions.
Yep.
There you go, appointor means Mark Williams, blah, and then also goes down to the next appointor. So if we just go through, you can see that that's our discretionary trustee. The last one we want to do is effectively, let's go and have a look at doing an account-based pension. So this is, we go to our income streams and our product categories. So we can do a transitional retirement income stream. I did quite a big session on this recently if you need some help, and that's in the support centre. So let's just go through the account-based pension. Buying the product. We're getting up to almost the end of the hour, so you've got to pump through this one, my boy.
Well, and pay with credit.
So obviously we're going to come up with the name of the SMSF, which we've all seen. Now we have to put in the name of the member who's actually taking the pension. So what's happening is they're converting some of their income amounts to a pension. We need to put in the date of the birth. In fact, we need to go back, which will tell you you need to be at least 60 or more in order to take an account-based pension, so make it 55.
I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah, I know. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So then we put in the income stream commencement date. We can use our little calendar box there.
We'll do today's date.
Yeah, today's date. And then that will pop up, give it account balance. Let's say it's 400. And that will give a minimum annual payment based on today's date being the end of May. And then what you need to do is you have to put your current year income above the minimum. So let's say it's 2,000. You'll have a tax-free component every pension. Your advisor or your partner will be able to determine that. Or you can actually go into your system. You'll find out from your superannuation software or your administration provider what the tax-free and what the taxable component is. Tax-free is good because if it's passed on to a child on estate, effectively that part that's tax-free. If their adult child is tax-free. So we've got the fund and the member details. Now we go to the trustee.
Just put an individual.
The member is going to have to put it in 2. Obviously, Roger Rabbit's probably going to poke his head up again. So we go through this situation. He's made a typo, but anyway, that's okay. And so we go through the same process. Now, what's that done? That's actually set up the account-based pension. So we go to the next stage, and we'll just talk through this. So ordinarily, it's really important, and your advisor or your planner or your partner will tell you is you can either set up one of these pensions. What will happen, though, is on the death of the member, effectively, that pension ceases, which means all the monies roll back to the accumulation stage, and we haven't got any pension anymore. the best strategy is to keep that pension going on to the next person. So, for example, it could be the spouse or effectively a child who's under the age of 25. So how old is Jaden?
He's 13.
Okay, so let's go yes. So what we do is we put in yes. Now for that one, just put in Jaden's name. So Jaden now, if something happens to Michael, he takes over. So then what we do is we can choose any of these boxes. So in the event the reversionary pension beneficiary remains alive, so click that box. And what happens is you can see there, in the event that Jaden Jeffries remains alive at the time of my death, they are to take 100% of my pension in any manner or form that they desire, which means they actually take the pension. Now, if Jaden's not alive at the time, so they're both killed in, for example, car accidents, sorry to say that, but anyway, we've got in the event of my death and death of Jaden Jeffries, my superannuation estate to go proportionally to each of my bloodline children that remain alive at the time of my death. So who are your other children?
Jessica, she's 11.
Okay, so Jessica would take it. Any child that's under 25 is to be paid as a non-commutable pension, blah, blah, blah. So she would take that. And now if there's no one around, then what it does is it goes to the estate. So what happens is we're actually building in some really good estate planning there. You need to go through those forms. If you're just doing it straight off as an admin, you don't need to do that. Make sure your partner has a really good look because that's going to come up in the document. Now we go through the trustee meeting because they have to, the trustees have to ratify and resolve because the resolution becomes a binding resolution, which means it binds not only current but also future trustees as well. You need to do date of meeting as well, sorry.
Oh, that came off.
I know, well, sometimes when you do select.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. So that should be the end. And let's have a look at that last document that we've done. Again, by now you should get a bit of an idea. All of this stuff sits in your vault. You can go back, you can change it, download all the documents. So account-based pension, because it's a new financial product, you can see there we've got the disclaimers again. Then we've got a product disclosure statement. We've got the same if you're doing a transition retirement income stream. There's quite extensive product. So an application by Michael to commence an account-based pension. You can see there is age 63. So you look pretty young for that, Michael. But you've got the proposed, the retirement, you've got your current year, 17% tax-free, Jane's reversionary. And you can see there the terms and conditions. So they've all popped out of there. And again, you've got condition 2, condition 3 signed by the member. Obviously needs to be witnessed. We put in 2 witnesses. Normally it's not required, but I just feel it's a lot stronger at law to have 2 witnesses there. I think it's better for all of us to be certain rather than not. So then we have a binding trustee resolution, which means it actually becomes, when you have a look at a deed, it becomes binding, not only current but also future trustees. Goes through the same process, same data, again, the same terms and conditions of the reversionary. And then again, we have it signed by the trustee. So if I remember correctly, I've got individual trustees. So again, Michael and Roger, and we need witnesses' signatures as well. So that's a quick run through in an hour. And as you can see, the more you do, the easier it is to get because it's fairly intuitive. But so far, we've effectively, we looked through, quite a lot of stuff. We started off with just an individual SMSF trust deed. We then moved on to a individual leading member. Remember, who every company, we could put that in beforehand. We then looked at an upgrade of an SMSF deed, if you've got an existing deed there as well. We then looked at a multiple or RPA, which is a combined more than one document put together. So that was for a leading member upgrade of the Constitution and also leading member trust deed. We then looked at a discretionary trust. And then finally, we looked at account-based pension with a reversion, which came in for quite significant, a reversion going down from Michael down to his son. So all of those documents, ordinarily, each of those documents, except for the RPA, which is 2 documents together, is only $99 for you. So again, I think we probably just did. If this was live, because if you're a foundation member, you get, if you do 5 documents, you get another 5 free. So it ends up that these documents are only, I think, $49 each. So it works out a really cheap, fast, efficient, but it now brings everything back to you. And the more documents we load on, the more power it is for all of us. Anyway, we're getting to the end of the session, so thank you for guiding us through that, Michael, with your erudite comments and letting us see all about your family. Anyway, it's Grant Abbott and Michael signing off. This will be available in the Support Centre very shortly.